Do you ever just want to watch a TV show that has hours upon hours of story and content about the bad guy? Like, do you ever just really want to get hooked into a story about the bad guy? Because I do. I love getting hooked by the bad guy. And I wanted to chat with you guys today about a few of my favorite bad guy TV shows where there are hours upon hours of content around the bad guys. Now, the reason why I'm so into watching bad guys is because I love dissecting their psychology, and I love when I can watch a bad guy, hate him because of morally what he does, and yet still somehow feel a lot of love for him. And so these shows are shows where the characters are absolutely despicable, but I can't help but root for them. It's like this really odd juxtaposition where I both hate and love the character, you know? And that's the kind of vibe that we're going for here, and I'm going to talk to you guys about 5 shows that have amazing bad guys as the main characters. The first one is a gimme. I think that if it's not on this list, it's not even fair because it is 100% one of my favorite stories about bad guys. Now, the thing is, everyone's probably seen it, and if you haven't, why not? The TV show that has to be on this list, but I might as well get it out of the way so that, you know, if you like these, you'll probably like the other ones I'm about to list. And if you haven't seen this one, hopefully you watch it at some point. So Breaking Bad is an amazing example of a bad guy focused story. Breaking Bad is a story about a chemistry teacher who gets lung cancer and decides the only way that he could pay for the treatment is to sell, drugs. He uses his chemistry skills to become a drug lord. It's pretty intense, it's pretty amazing, and some of the best character work is done in that story, both with the main character and the side characters. There's a lot of love that goes into all the characters, but of course the one that's most interesting to watch, the character that just zaps you into focus into the show, is obviously going to be Walter White. We could sit here for hours and argue whether he's an ENTJ or INTJ. I am inclined to believe that he's an INTJ. But anyway, I digress. If you like Breaking Bad, I want to go for another one that's a little bit older and one of my absolute favorite of all the shows. And I don't know which one on this list is my absolute favorite, but this one's up there, and that is Dexter. Dexter is your quintessential ISTJ who does the same thing every single day. And one of those things is murder serial killers. Okay, he doesn't murder serial killers every single day. But I mean, I think that the intro alone of the TV show is enough reason for you to be like, ah, yeah, this is a show about an ISTJ, isn't it? Because the opening sequence is this ASMR of his morning routine, which literally never changes. It's his morning routine. It is the same intro for all 8 seasons. They literally do not once adjust it in any single way, because that's the kind of person that he is. Dexter goes through a lot of emotional growth throughout the show. There are some arguments about, which of his adversaries are the best and which ones are the worst, which we could definitely discuss at some point. But I think that it's phenomenal. I really, really, really enjoyed Dexter and his character growth. And again, like Breaking Bad, there was a lot of care put into the side characters like Deb, LaGuerta, Batista, and so on. There are no stops pulled. And yeah, sometimes the show gets a little crazy, but I think that overall it's a really interesting take on what would happen if a serial killer was actually a good guy, but he's still a serial killer because he's killing people. And sometimes he kills good people, but most of the time he kills bad people. It's a great show for moral ambiguity, and I appreciate that. I think that's what I appreciate the most out of all of these shows, is the moral ambiguity. Next on our list is a story in the opposite direction. It is a little bit older as well, just like these 3 shows. However, it takes place in the oldest of all the time periods that we're going to talk about, and it takes place in the Wild Wild West. It takes place on a train building company. They build trains. The Union Railroad, I think it's the Trans-American Union, right? There's a railroad, and they build it. And that is the show, which sounds terribly boring, but it's actually not, because the main character is sort of like running away from his past. He had a really violent past. He's trying to be like a better person. And in order to be a better person, he's decided that he's going to isolate himself from society, but society keeps coming to him, and he has to take action. And he's a really great version of an ISTP main character. His character goes through a lot of turmoil, a lot of depressing stuff happens to him. This is one of the more depressing of the options I'm going to give you. But if you can put up with a little bit of depression and you like the Wild Wild West aesthetic, it is fantastic. And also, again, like the other shows, the side characters have a lot of character development as well. There is the railroad owner. There's like girls in the show. There's this one girl who has like, she's been like marked by a native tribe, and she's got like tattoos on her chin. She's one of my favorite characters. Anyway, the show is phenomenal, and I definitely recommend you check it out. Following that on our list is a show that I think is quite popular, but still might not be seen by everyone. And if you haven't seen this, you need to watch it. And that's the Peaky Blinders. Okay, I thought it would be better than that. It's the Peaky Blinders, mate. Anyway, this show takes place after World War I, and the main character, Thomas Shelby, was in the war, and he actually is sort of like a gang leader. He's in charge of this certain area, but he also has a coping mechanism of drugs. His struggles with his emotional control and the control over his PTSD is just absolutely fascinating to watch, but we're also watching an incredibly intelligent person maneuver and take advantage of this world and really build a name for himself. And I think that if you want to see a gang member at their prime in like the 20s. The 20s aesthetic is just one that I am a big fan of. I like it a lot. Like the other shows, the side characters get a lot of work. Though for me, like the only reason I want to watch it is definitely Cillian Murphy, who, interestingly enough, I find to be not the most attractive person because he kind of looks like a skeleton with skin. That being said, I love watching his character, Thomas Shelby, in Peaky Blinders. Definitely check it out. It is a fantastic show. I'm probably not doing it very much justice, but the character work, chef's kiss. Also, really fantastic antagonist in this show who's very hard to understand. I mean, it's kind of a meme how difficult it is to understand him with his accent, but it's still a really, really great show. And finally, we have Ozark. Ozark is a completely different kind of vibe from all the other ones. Now, some things are similar in that it is related to gang stuff and it is related to drugs, but this character is more so, he's more so the money launderer. His job is to launder money for the gangs. And he gets roped into that in order to save his life. It's a long story, but this character is like a quintessential INTP. Very, very intelligent, but not the best at like real world things. But he's incredibly, incredibly intelligent, and his wife is also incredibly intelligent. She's like an ESFJ, so they are very polar opposite people, and they both use their skills to sort of manipulate this world around them, and their character growth and changes throughout the show are just, it's so good, and I just can't wait for it to continue. I really hope that it does. I really hope that COVID didn't just like shut it down forever, because Ozark is amazing. It takes place in, the Ozarks in Missouri. I almost said Mississippi. It's another fantastic show about the bad guys, except that they're not your stereotypical INTJ or ENTJ or EST. Like, TJs get typecast as the bad guys, and I want to see more bad guys that are FJs and FPs. Give me more FJs and FPs. They can be bad too. That's my list of TV shows that I find to be fabulous, and they cover some not so great characters who you want to hate, but you have to root for. It's like a really odd juxtaposition, and it's fantastic. Those shows, again, are Breaking Bad, Dexter, Hell on Wheels, Peaky Blinders, and Ozark. Are there any shows that you really love that follow an antagonist? I've heard of Hannibal, and it sounds like it's pretty interesting. I've been a little bit hesitant about it because I really like Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, and I'm a little concerned about watching a show that could maybe take it away from that performance. So I'm a little nervous, but if it's really worth it, I will check it out. But anyway, I am always on the search of shows that are just really fantastic with great character work, really diving into the psychology of the bad guy. Those are the shows that I find to be some of my favorites. What are your favorites? Let me know down below in the comments. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope that you have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic day. Bye! I also forgot to mention a show that I definitely have seen, and I think that is actually an INFJ main character. INFP. You is really, really interesting in that we get to follow the perspective of a psychopath, but he's also a feeler and he's romantic and he is like, he has this idea of like a soulmate and the one, and he's always in search of the one. And he is not fully aware of who he is. He's an unreliable narrator, so sometimes he tells you something he says is happening, and in fact, that is not the truth. His imagination really gets the best of him, and he's not very reliable. Like sometimes we see his imagination versus what's really happening, and as the show progresses, it gets more and more insane. Season 1, he is a stalker. Season 2, there is a plot twist, and Season 3, the plot twists are literally every single episode. It's very fun. It's very fun. It's like a guilty pleasure kind of fun. It's not as good of a TV show as the other 5 that I mentioned, but I just enjoy it. Like, I enjoy it for the fact that, one, the antagonist is the main character, but it's also really good. The acting is just great, especially Season 2 and 3 when there's this character Love, who is played by the same girl from Haunting of Hill House. She has great, like, faces. But anyway, You is amazing, and I think that it definitely deserves to be on this list, albeit not the best character work, but it is fun. It is fun. And he's not a stereotype TJ character. The feeler is a hero in this show. I don't know. Is he an INFJ? Is he an INFP? He's an INF, whatever it is. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Ta-da!